Good morning, everyone. This is Katrina Boyer from the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities, and I'm so happy to see that you have joined us today for our Midweek Money Matters, all about protecting the nest egg that we've saved from fraud. Hopefully, you joined us last week when we talked about how we can make our money last through retirement. This is sort of that part two where we're going to talk about protecting it from the criminals that would be wanting to take it away from us. So we're going to focus mainly on basically three different types of investment scams. Clearly, these are not all inclusive. There are many others out there, but today we're going to be talking about affinity fraud, free lunch scams, and Ponzi schemes. So without further ado, we will get started, but I do have to throw out that caveat that we are recording today's session. If you do not agree to being recorded, please keep yourself muted until the end of the session. I will stop the recording and answer any questions that you may have at the end, and that should cover all of us. So when we think about affinity fraud, it's important for us to understand that this type of fraud really starts with someone coming into our lives and creating this sense of trust and friendship within specific groups. It can involve a church organization, it can involve your local civic club, athletic organizations, you name it, and criminals can try to get involved in those types of groups and then rely on word of mouth to share information amongst within the group. But I do really like to show a video about that kind of covers affinity fraud in more detail. Please, this is downloaded from the When I'm 65 website that I refer to often. So let's just take a look and see what we hear from the securities regulator.
For aging adults and retirees, the friendships they've forged over time should be something they can lean on in their later years. But to a fraudster, these close bonds provide the perfect way to lure the unsuspecting into a scam. It's something Steve Fega has seen all too often.
It could be through a church, it could be a golfing club, it could be a country club, it could be a Rotary club.
They're one of the most common types of scams that Fega runs into, and it's called affinity fraud.
Affinity fraud is any type of fraud where people are induced to get into it because of a relationship that they have with another victim.
In a recent case, Vega and his team worked with the FBI to prosecute a local Alabama man, Edward Forehand, for scamming investors out of millions of dollars. Forehand targeted people he knew at his church with the investment of a lifetime. Forehand's pitch went like this. He could sell designer pots and pans to culinary colleges across the country for $2,000 a pop. Once invested in this scheme, people could count on huge profits plus interest.
The scheme is what we call a classic Ponzi scheme because there's actually no pots and pans being purchased. There's no money being generated, no sales happening on college campuses anywhere.
Forehand had enough money at the start to pay the earlier investors' returns. Convinced Forehand was legitimate, those investors spread the word to their friends and loved ones about their profits.
Their friends and family members saw that happen and would say, hey, where did you get the money to buy that car? Or where did you get the money to put the addition on your house? How can I get in? And they would put them in touch with Forehand.
But Forehand could only keep up the illusion for so long.
And over time, this thing grows. Now, eventually, it's going to collapse on itself because of the sheer weight and numbers of people who will begin to ask for money.
3 years later, the scheme collapsed. 87 people, many fellow churchgoers of Forehand's, lost a total of almost $3 million. Though Fega and his associates were able to get some of the investors' money back, Most of it was gone for good.
The most tragic part of Mr. Forehand's scheme is that this half of these people were elderly. They were investing with him their nest eggs. They weren't wealthy people. Their hope was that they could thereby grow that nest egg and actually have a comfortable or a much more comfortable retirement.
Vega and his team did win some justice for Forehand's victims. Forehand was tried, convicted on all counts, and sentenced to 90 months in prison. The case may be closed, but for Vega, the lessons people can learn from it still apply today.
If someone offers you an unrealistic rate of return, or someone is pressuring you with high-pressure sales tactics to make an investment quickly, pick up the phone and call your state's Securities Commission.
And organizations like the Alabama Securities Commission are always there to help.
We can make a few phone calls and we can find out definitively very quickly, and we can save people tremendous emotional stress, financial damage, and sometimes, ruin.
Find out more by visiting wi65.org.
So just to recap what we learned about affinity fraud, and I think that it's a really great segue into sort of the Ponzi scheme, because the reality is that when you have affinity fraud, Ponzi, typically that pyramid scheme that we heard about kind of goes together hand in hand. So it's important to understand that, like the gentleman from Alabama talked about, consumers need to check with their Securities Commission, which happens to be the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities here in the Commonwealth. And if you see something or someone is offering you the investment of a lifetime, or a promise of a return on an investment that's incredibly higher than any other type of investment, that's a red flag. And we need to make sure that we research and make sure that it's actually an investment product. When the gentleman was selling the pots and pans, what we learned was that there was absolutely no pots and pans to be had, but he was certainly taking his investors' money. So that kind of shows us where that Ponzi scheme, where there's actually no business, and we use the money that we get from new investors to pay off the old investors. And we saw that very clearly in Bernie Madoff's case, where Bernie Madoff was convicted of 11 felony charges. He was arrested in 2008 on a multi-billion-dollar Ponzi scheme. He got 150 years in prison, which I think is phenomenal, because so often when we hear about these types of crimes, the perpetrators are given leniency because they show remorse, or they plead guilty or something along those lines. With Bernie Madoff, he was given no leniency, and I think part of that may have been because initially, before he got started in the Ponzi scheme, he offered a legitimate business. He was an investment professional. So I do want to mention, and there are no slides on this, but I want to talk about a local Ponzi scheme that took place with Jan Lewan, who was from up in the Scranton area. He was considered the Polka King, and he was well known throughout the Commonwealth and in other states. And he took advantage of his fans. He was the Polka King, and he was considered, he had this great charisma about him. But he started to take advantage of his fans by offering them the opportunity to invest in his business, where he was promising guaranteed returns of 12 to 20%. And he made those offers only to very select people. So he created this of, you're special, so I'm going to allow you to invest in in my company. And when he finally was caught, he ended up serving not quite 6 years in prison, but if you're ever looking for a really solid sort of understanding of how we can use affinity fraud to create this sense of security and kind of seeing Ponzi schemes come to real life, the if you have Netflix, there's a great show called the Polka King, that is done with Jack Black as the star. He portrays Jan Lowen. It's a great story, and it really does help with understanding sort of the ins and outs, because often I hear consumers who say, well, I can't believe they fell victim to that. That was, nobody would ever really fall for that. But the reality is these criminals create such a story, and they create that sense of trust, and we're really good friends and we can trust each other, and that's how people get sucked in. So I would encourage you, if you are interested at all, to check out that movie, because it really is very interesting. So let's talk about free lunches. In the chat box, I just ask you to tell me if you've ever received that really nice, colorful, bright, and shiny invitation inviting you to come for a free lunch or free dinner at the most prestigious restaurant local that you're aware of, or you've seen newspaper ads telling you to come and take part in this great opportunity, this free lunch, and there will be no sales pitch. Have any of you ever seen an invitation like that, where you're invited to come for free lunch? Just go ahead and put that in the chat. And let's see. Holly says yes, she has. If you have heard me talk about our campaign for wise and safe investing through AARP, I'm going to actually show you a video that features some of our volunteers that participate in. They go to these free lunch offers and evaluate them and provide information back. So let's watch this video from When I'm 65, and we'll come back and talk about that as well.
This is the AARP Pennsylvania Consumer Issues Task Force, and this is their leader, Mary Bach.
So I think that we can be extremely proud of all of the work that we're doing. And again,
They fight multiple forms of fraud, and they have set their sights on free meal seminars.
if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
These free meals begin with high production value invitations in the mail, newspapers, or email,
Oh, and this is a good one.
promising huge returns on your investments and expanding your retirement funds, plus a free dinner at a fancy restaurant. What could be wrong with that?
We've had a lot of interesting experiences. Going to the free meal, there will be a presenter, sometimes with a very fancy PowerPoint.
Buzzwords such as guaranteed and no risk to you have led 1 in 5 Americans aged 65 and older to be victimized by a financial wrongdoing, accounting for more than $2.9 billion in financial losses each year.
There were a lot of people, a lot smarter than me, that gave money to Bernie Madoff. And so if people were fooled in that situation, you wonder how easy it is for people like me to be fooled.
Once you have had your meal, or sometimes before you can even take a bite, the agent will tell you about a product, pitching you on stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or living trusts.
Most of the dinners that we have attended have literally been legitimate. That is, they are offered by people who want to do your financial planning with you or for you.
However, Mary and the task force are taking action against one of the most commonly exploited products pitched, resulting in elder financial fraud: annuities. There are many types of annuities. They are an insurance product used as an additional stream of income for retirement. Quickly, this is how it works. You pay a financial premium or premiums to the insurance company. After a selected time based on your plan, they pay you back later in regular income intervals for a set point of time, mirroring a paycheck they've grown accustomed to receiving, or a lump sum.
Annuities are not for everyone. It's really a long-term investment tool. If you've got the time to invest and let that money sit and then get payouts years down the road, it may be an appropriate investment tool.
The fact of the matter is they make more in commissions selling annuities than pretty much any other investment product that they could be selling. Oftentimes it's 5 to 6% commission.
The pressures to buy these products are heightened at the free meal because one may feel obligated to buy these for receiving a free nice dinner. However, the pressure sales tactics happen when the seller comes to your house for the follow-up visit.
This gentleman was pitching an annuity, which was not at all suitable for us. I would have had to live to be 119 years old in order to reap the benefits of the particular annuity that the gentleman wanted to sell to us. And the gentleman finally said, "Why don't you just write me a check for $100,000 and we'll work out all the details later?" We think he was a genuine scam artist.
We worry about particularly seniors who may be going to these free lunches where they feel pressure to make a decision to buy an annuity today. But you have a period of time where you can go back and say, okay, you know, maybe I felt pressured to buy this annuity, maybe it wasn't the right thing for me, and maybe I want to get out of it. And you can get out of it without having to pay the surrender charges or any fees associated with that.
Experts urge you to do your due diligence before and after attending a free meal. Read and research specifics such as riders, options, fees, and expenses. Don't feel obliged to buy or say yes to an agent if you don't feel comfortable, and don't hesitate to ask the tough questions. Look for red flags such as the use of urgency to get you to buy now. If it's a good investment today, it's a good investment tomorrow, and be wary of false promises.
We don't want people to be preyed upon. We want people to take the time to really think about and study the product and make sure it's the right product for them.
I don't want anybody to be cheated out of any of their hard-earned money. And I don't want older consumers to trust blindly what they are being told by a scam artist who's simply trying to get his hand into their wallet or pocketbook.
Find out more.
So that was interesting, wasn't it? We had some other people who answered throughout the video. We had lots of people indicated, yes, they had received those bright, glossy, expensive invitations. And, you know, we get that advice. And hopefully Mary Bach was really clear. They can be legitimate offers, but it's important that we make sure we understand exactly what we're getting into. Because I don't know about you, but I don't think I'll live to be 119 years old. That's a long time for Mary to have had to live in order to make the annuity that she's being pressured into investing in or purchasing, make it worth her while. So before we say yes to those things, it's really important that we understand those red flags. When someone tells you that there's no risk or it's a guaranteed return, that's a those are scary statements that we need to be aware of. And like the insurance commissioner said, understand that if you get into a situation where you've purchased an annuity, make sure that you know, before you let time go by, understand if you happen to have been pressured into getting it, understand that you've got a couple days to research it and get out of it. But your best answer is to say no, do your research, and then make an informed decision. So we always want to protect our money, right? So before we do anything, we want to make sure that we investigate the information, whether we're talking about the affinity fraud from our the first example, or the pyramid scheme, or even that free lunch. Make sure that we're looking at broker check. Make sure that we're calling the Department of Banking and Securities to verify that the product is registered, because we don't want to give up our hard-earned money. We've worked really hard to save it. We're working really hard to make it last through our retirement. We want to make sure that we're not inadvertently giving it away to someone that claims to be legitimate. So I always like to provide resources. Those of you who have participated in these events before, you know that I'm quick to throw out information about my office, the Department of Banking and Securities. You can find our publications at dobs.pa.gov. We have some fantastic publications available for consumers to read and learn more. If you believe you have become a victim of one of these frauds, it's important that you contact my office as well as the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office at attorneygeneral.gov, or by calling that 800 number that's listed on your screen. I mentioned broker check. You can make sure that the professional who's offering you that investment opportunity, that the investment of a lifetime, make sure that they are properly registered at brokercheck.finra.org. You can also call them at 800-289-9999. If you are curious about some of the other videos that the When I'm 65 organization has created, you can actually watch the whole hour-long documentary at wi65.org. They also have lots of smaller videos, much like the ones that I showed today, that can help you to understand other types of investment frauds. They can help you to be certain where you are now compared to where you want to be. They can help you with some of that financial planning. And then there's investorprotection.org that also has some phenomenal publications that are available for you to download. If you see something on investorprotection.org that you'd like to have a printed copy of, if you email me, I will actually check our inventory to see what we have, and I may be able to mail that out to you. So my email address will be provided shortly, but know that I'm happy to send those out if you don't want to read them online or print them out on your own. So hopefully you remember that our Office of Consumer Services is available to answer your questions, whether it's about an investment product, whether it is an investment professional, whether it is something else that has nothing to do with investing. Maybe it's your financial institution or you're struggling with your mortgage. Our Consumer Services office are available during regular business hours. And what's really great is that we actually answer the phone. So when someone calls in, you get a real life person that says banking and securities, and they will be happy to help you. They are trained professionals and they are really good at what they do. So I would encourage you to give them a call if you have any questions or concerns about a financial transaction or a financial organization. I want to thank you so much for participating in today's webinar. My name is Katrina Boyer. You can reach me at katrboyer@pa.gov. If you'd like a copy of today's PowerPoint presentation, I'm happy to send that to you. If you'd like other resources, you can always email me or give me a call. I am going to stop the recording now, and if anyone has questions, you are welcome to